Welcome to Daughters of Divine Joy, the radio show for women who are tired of choosing between success and their sanity. Each week, we gather around this virtual table to talk about the things nobody else is saying out loud: how to lead without burning, how to set boundaries without guilt, how to honor your calling without sacrificing your soul. This is a sacred place for women who are done accepting chaos as normal and ready to claim the joy that's been their birthright all along. This is Daughters of Divine Joy. Welcome.
Hello, 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 daughters. How are you? I pray that everyone is doing fine. I'm doing wonderful. Okay, I want to shout out today to the ladies at Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Today is the Founders Day. And to all my sisters out there who may be listening, happy Founders Day to you. And so we're here for episode 2. And I thank you all who watched, and I hope you told somebody. Make sure that you like and subscribe, become a subscriber to the PA Empowerment Network. There are so many wonderful shows that are cropping up. And so we just want you to tune in and get yourself informed about a myriad of things that we have here. So let me get myself together and we will begin this show. So today we're going to talk about holy no's. That's what I said, a holy no. You can say no and let it be holy. And so we're calling it holy no's because we're actually talking about setting boundaries and setting boundaries without having guilt about it. Okay. So let me tell you a little story. When I was younger, a bit younger, my mother would call me up. I lived upstairs from my mom, and she would call me up and she'd go, "Oh, I need you to go," always running an errand. And so I would be in the middle of doing things, and I had this guilt about not doing what she asked me to do when she asked me to do it. Until one day I was going to a concert or something, and I had tickets and I had to leave at a certain time. And she says, "Well, I need this now." I said, "Well, when did you discover you needed it?" She said, "Well, earlier today." I said, "Then you don't need it now. You needed it earlier today and you waited until now. So I can go get it later on when I come home. I'll stop at Lowe's. They're open all night. I'll stop there and get it, okay? And you can have it in the morning." She said, "Well, I guess I can wait till the morning." I'm saying to myself, I'm sure you can. And that's what freed me. That opportunity, that one opportunity freed me. I was able to start saying no to my mother. Okay. And I'm going to tell you another big feat of mine. I said no to my pastor. Yeah, girl, you can do that. You can do that. So let me get into this without any further ado. I'm going to change this page here so I can see my notes because I do not do all this talking without notes. So please don't think that I do. Um, anyway, so get your tea, get whatever it is that you want to have a little sip on while we're going to talk. And I'm going to tell you because we have always taught, just like I did, that good girls say yes. You say yes to the things that the people who tell you, especially your elders, anybody in authority, all these things. And so, but let me ask you something. How many times a week did you say yes when everything in your spirit told you to say no? How many communities are you on? How many committees are you on that are draining you? How many people's emergencies have become your responsibility? Okay, now you know where I'm going. I was talking to a sister last week, brilliant woman, respected leader. She's active in her church. She's a leader in the community. She has a very responsible job. And she told me she couldn't remember the last time she had a Saturday with nothing on her calendar. Sounds familiar? I know it does. I know it does because I know how my calendar looks. And so she said, I'm tired, but I just can't seem to say no. What will people think? And you know what I said to her? What is that any of your business? What they think. Sisters, we have been trained to say yes to a lot of things that we don't want to say yes to. And I'm going to tell you why it's important to say no. Because sometimes you say yes to things that God hasn't asked you to do, and you overlook the assignments that God has for you. Is that serious? Okay, so let us get into this today. Um, I want to talk about some of the theology of, and yeah, I'm a lay pastor, so sometimes I get into theology. Some of the theology of why we not only can say no, we deserve to say no. And so Jesus in Mark 1, verse 35, I think to 38, Jesus had a massive day of ministry. Everybody was coming. He had healed Peter's mother-in-law. He had cast out demons. He had healed the sick. Everybody was showing up just to get healed by Jesus. So miracle after miracle. And what does Jesus do the next morning? Gets up and goes away, off by himself to pray. Now listen to what happens next. The disciples come looking for him, and they're telling him, what you doing out here? You got to go back. You got to go back. There's a whole bunch of folks out here waiting for you. Jesus, what are you doing? And so Jesus is just looking, and he's like, let's go somewhere else. And I know they were looking at him like he had 14 heads. What do you mean, let's go somewhere else? There's people, you performed all these miracles. There's people waiting for you. They've been in line since yesterday. Let's go somewhere else. Because I'm sure in his prayer life, Jesus was told, okay, you finished here, go somewhere else. And that's what we have to learn how to start doing. You're not Jesus. And if Jesus had to take a break, why aren't you? That's the question for today. Your no protects your yes. And so that's why the no is holy. Here's what I want you to understand. Every yes you say to something, that's not yours to carry now. This is somebody else's yes. This is somebody asking you to do something for them. Every yes you give is every no that you're saying to something else. It's your time, it's your energy, it's your emotional capacity that you're giving. And these are finite resources. You're not going to have these forever to just keep giving and giving and giving. And you don't want your depletion to look like being in a hospital in ICU. You don't want your completion to look like having therapy on the couch. And there's nothing wrong with therapy, but go for your problems. Well, that would be your problem if you can't say no. We cannot allow people to drain us. Now, think about it this way. If you're a teacher and God called you to pour into your students in your classroom, but you're so exhausted from running 3 committees and coordinating 4 ministries and showing up for events that have left you no time for the babies you are assigned to, whose voice are you really listening to? The one that called you to the classroom to teach, or are you listening to everybody else? We cannot just say yes and not think about what we're doing to ourselves, to our children, to our marriages. Every yes you say to someone outside of your household, or maybe sometimes even the yeses you say to your household, is taking something from you. Now, we all know if you're a mother, you got to give to them babies too. You had them, you have to give to them. But sometimes you need a break. And you got to be able to balance that thing. Okay, I'm not going to get into that because we did talk about that last week. So I'll refer you to the last week's show. Anyway, um, now if we look at this from another angle, because this isn't just personal, it's political as well. Our ancestors, particularly our foremothers, were denied the right to say no. They had to just show up, especially during at the time of slavery. They couldn't say no to being enslaved. Their labor was stolen from them. They weren't paid for their work. It was just taken. And so they were in a position where their bodies were being used, really violated. If you're working me and not paying me, you're violating me. And sometimes when you're getting paid, you're still being violated because the expectation is not realistic. The level of productivity is not realistic. But in this situation, this was a clear violation because they had no rights. They had no ability to say no. And you do. So listen to your inner voice. Listen to God. Take some time to step away. When you say no today to a demand that drains you or a request that doesn't align with your purpose, to expectations that maybe diminish your humanity, you're engaging in liberation work. It's the work of you being free to use that no without explaining, without a long dissertation of why, without saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't. You don't have to apologize for saying no. It's a complete sentence, actually. So anyway, um, just to one more thing on the whole liberation idea. Um, Self care is not selfish. It's self preservation. It's freedom. It's you watching out for you. You're not betraying anyone if you set up boundaries. You're not being lazy because you need to rest. There, these are acts of defiance against systems that profit from your exhaustion. And so, yeah, you can say no. You can say no and mean it. Okay. So let's talk about why we struggle so much. Why is it so hard for us to say no? Well, we don't want to hurt folks' feelings. I don't, And, think back to when you were a little girl. What were you taught about saying no? Were you taught to be nice to people? Not make waves, be quiet, be helpful, just think about others first. Am I right? And if you enter the black church or any church, that's part of what the Christian woman is supposed to do. And so if you're a black woman, you got an extra layer. You were taught to be strong, to hold it together, to be the backbone, to never let them see you struggle. Because showing weakness or asking for help or setting limits, couldn't do that. And when you go to church, what does the church teach? Pick up your cross and carry it daily. hmm But as Mark tells us, Jesus put the cross down every now and again. Jesus went to take his rest. And so we sometimes have our labor um, and our energy sucked away by the church. Okay? I've heard pastors say, if you're tired, you're not trusting God enough. I heard the church mother say, a godly woman serves. A godly woman never complains about her load. If I watch women collapse under the weight, I have watched women collapse under the weight of church work. I have heard children say, Every time the door is open, we're here at church. And then she go home and act like a devil, yelling and screaming at us. Because she's tired. She's tired. She's tired. And instead of saying no to church, she's saying no to taking a rest. And so anyway, I'm not beating up on church, but sometimes we look at things and call it theology, but it's not. It's just more toxic dogma, I guess I can call it. Then there's fear and guilt. The twins, I call them. Afraid to say no, afraid of what people might think. You're afraid of what they're going to think about you. You fear that if you say no, people might not like you anymore. That you look at you and say that you're difficult or selfish or you're not a team player. You fear that they'll stop asking you. And then what would you be worth? That's a real one right there. Our self worth is tied, sometimes, it's tied into what we do for other people. And it's all right to do for other people, but not unto the point of death. Even if it's a spiritual death or a death where you get so you don't even want to do the things you love to do anymore. Okay. And then the other thing we do is we confuse self-sacrifice with godliness. Okay. And this is where it gets tricky because we think that the more we give up, the more we suffer, the more exhausted we are, the more holy we must be. I'm going to let you chew on that one for a minute. But show me in scripture what God says. And we have to burn out. Show me what that says there. Show me what Jesus said, work yourself to the bone and call it ministry. Show me where the fruits of the Spirit include chronic exhaustion. It's not there. So you don't have to show me. It's not there. Peace, joy, rest, Sabbath, boundaries, limits, work, rest, work, rest. That's a rhythm. The sixth day, remember? The sixth day. When God looked around and thought all the creation was good, the seventh day, God rested. God is not just a he. God rested on the seventh day. Okay? So, don't blame me. You talk to God about that if you're unhappy with that framing. The goal is not to be a martyr. You can't do that. The goal is to be faithful to your calling, your actual calling. And nobody can tell you what that is because, beloved, when God called you, it was not a conference call. It wasn't a Zoom meeting. God called you, and others don't get to define what that calling is. Okay? So, what makes a no holy? I mean, I know you're saying, well, why is that holy? You know, said it's not in the Bible. I know y'all back there talking about it. It protects what God said yes to in your life. Okay, we all know that God has a purpose and a plan for our lives. But if you're saying yes to everybody else, you're actually saying no to that plan and that purpose. Let me say it again. Saying yes to everything and everybody is actually saying no to God. So that no that you say when people say, oh, I thought about you because, honey, I know can't nobody do this like you. My plate is full. I know. Oh, thank you for that compliment, Sister So-and-so. Thank you for that. But my plate is full. I told somebody that this week. I said, my plate is full. And they offered to pay for the event, the activity she was inviting me to belong to. I said, oh, it's not the money. The money is not an issue at all. I don't have the time. So there's no use in spending money to do something that I don't want to, that I can't do because I don't have the time to do it. My time is already parceled out for other things, and I can't do another thing. I can't do one more thing. And so she respected that, and I respected her for understanding. It wasn't, and it wasn't because I didn't want to do anything with her or any of that. I don't have time. Okay? Time is very precious. So you preserve your energy for what matters. And what God called you to do, your purpose in life, that's what matters. And nobody can tell you that. Your energy is not unlimited. A holy no says, I'm going to spend my energy on that which I have energy for what matters most. Okay? It's stewardship. That's what it is. Protecting your energy is stewardship. You only get a limited amount. So use it wisely, just like you would do your money. You wouldn't give all your money away to every person who asked, would you? And then have nothing for your household. Can't buy any groceries, can't make your mortgage payments, they having problems with your rent. You wouldn't do that. So why are you giving away your energy? Think about it. The next thing is that it honors the body God gave you when you say no. It means you're acknowledging that you're not a machine, you're a human being. You don't have to run 24/7 because you're not God. God rested on the seventh day, not because God was tired, but because God established a pattern. And we are to emulate that pattern. And so when you say no, when you give a holy no, what you're actually saying is that my body is sacred, my health matters, my rest is not negotiable. It says that I'm not going to sacrifice my well being for anybody else's convenience. These are some strong words that you need to say to yourself, sis, because that's what we do. That's what I did. I remember, I think I was 28 or 29, and I took a job working. I was a director of this organization, and we had a very small staff, and we served about 15 kids, but we served them diligently and hard. I mean, kids calling 11 o'clock at night, I missed a bus. You help them get this little job, you're teaching them how to save money, you're involved in helping to raise them. Actually, these were foster kids. And so we're actually in the job of trying to help them be responsible adults. And so that job was not a 9 to 5 job. And I found myself so exhausted from trying to be everywhere and everything to everybody all at once. And that can't happen. And it got to the point where I was so exhausted, my work started suffering. And my supervisor said, "You don't seem as enthused about this job as you once were." And I said, "I'm tired and I need a change." I could have stayed there and changed, but I didn't know how to do that. So I left there and made the change. And it didn't happen all at once. It was eventual because the change wasn't the job, the change was me and being able to say no. And so, um, the other thing I want you to understand is that your no creates space for your authentic yes, for the yes you're passionate about, the yes you're called to, the yes God set aside for you. And it allows you to step into the places that you're meant to be. It allows you to do the work that you're called and have the skills and the talents and the equipment to do. And so you're protecting your capacity when you honor limits. You're protecting yourself from what's not yours to carry and only carrying those things that God has called you to. Okay? And this doesn't just mean for the church, but we have to help our children learn how to do things on their own. We can't do everything for them. Same thing with spouses. Sometimes you need to say no because enabling looks like help on a bad day, on a good day, but in reality, on a bad day, it's not help at all. You're enabling, you're crippling them, you're doing for instead of teaching them how to stand on their own. Okay? So that's why no is holy. So we already talked about Mark 1. Now in Galatians, it says, I am now seeking human approval. Um, I am now seeking human approval or God's approval. Or am I trying to please people? If I were still pleasing people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians 1:10. And I'll read that again. Am I now seeking human approval or God's approval? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still pleasing people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. God will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If the load you're carrying is crushing you, then give it to God. It's not from God. Give it back to God. Because Jesus said his burden is light. And if Jesus' burden is light and mine is heavy, I'm giving some of it to Jesus. Another quick story, and I'm going to move on. My daughter had an asthma attack. She was in another state. This is just this week. Somehow or another, I let the fact that she was in ICU go over my head. I knew she was being checked out by the ICU team. However, I think the way her boyfriend sent a text to me, I thought they admitted her, but not into ICU. Anyway, so I get this text that they're in the ER, and they're trying to get her breathing regulated, and that they may admit her. So I'm waiting, I'm praying, I'm waiting, I'm praying, and then when there was something he said, they're going to have to keep her for tonight, and it may be another night. And I said, do I fly into Flint or do I have to go to Detroit? Because I'm going to see my baby. 35 years old, yes, but she's my baby. And so he says, Mama D, it's not time to freak out. I have this. She's all right. She's getting better, but it's going to take a little time. I will call you if you need to come. Well, I guess I was getting ready to cuss this little boy out. Who do you think you're talking to? But God said, isn't that nice? She has a young man who can take care of her. And if they're going to be married and spend the rest of his life, he better learn how to do this now. And I just said, you know what? You're right. And I did not let go of wanting to be there, but I also knew I didn't have to be there. She was there being loved by someone, and I didn't have to go and take over. He was doing a great job. And so that was something, and she's fine. She's out of the hospital now. They let her go yesterday. And I'm grateful for the fact that they were able to handle this together. I didn't have to jump in and be mama to the rescue. And that felt pretty doggone good. And so let's talk about the holy no practice. Okay, I'm moving my computer up a little bit so I can see my notes on this. Okay, so here's what I want you to do this week. When someone asks you for something, your time, your energy, your presence, whatever it is, Practice saying this to yourself. Does this align with what God has called you and called me to do right now? That's one question. Do I actually have the capacity for this? Or am I running on fumes? Am I saying yes out of joy or guilt? That's an important question. Will this add to my life or drain from it? Am I the only one who can do this? Or am I assuming responsibility that's not mine? If the answer is no, then practice these phrases. That doesn't work for me right now. That's all you say. You don't need to explain. I'm not able to take that on. Period. No, but thank you for thinking of me. That's my favorite one. I need to protect my capacity for my current commitments. That's basically what I said to the lady the other day. Oh, that sounds wonderful, but it's not my assignment right now. Okay? Those are words that you can say. Those are statements that you can give when people say they need to have something for you to do, want to give you an assignment, but your answer really is no because you can't take on anymore. That's what you can say. Okay. You don't have to explain yourself into the ground. You can just, say no and know that it's a complete sentence. But if you need a little more help, or yeah, keep it simple. Don't over apologize. No, I'm sorry. I'm just so busy. I feel terrible. I wish I could. Don't say that because that makes people think that they can keep at it and you'll break. Okay. Don't offer alternatives unless you really want to. Like I told you, I gave the alternative to my mother. I can pick it up tonight when I come home, or I'll get up early in the morning and go get it. You can offer an alternative if you really want to do it, but you can't do it at that moment. Don't let them negotiate. No doesn't mean convince me. Okay. And the last thing is protect your reasons. Your reasons are for you, they're not for their approval. Okay. And you don't need them to say, "Oh, is that all? Well, you can still do this. That's nothing. You can do that. Why whatever." You don't need that. Okay. So I'm giving you some homework this week. Um, this week you're going to say one holy no. You only have to do one. This may be hard for some folks, so only do one. If you know that you're a doer, you're a giver, you are involved in a lot of things, just find one thing you can say no to. Maybe it's stepping down from a committee that drains you. Maybe it's declining an invitation that you don't want to attend. Maybe it's telling your family you're not hosting this year. Maybe it's turning off your phone one evening a week. Whatever it is, I want you to know. I want you to recognize this and maybe even write it down in a journal. When you say no, what happens in your body? What does it feel like when you say no? You find your shoulders drop a little bit. You find maybe your breathing gets better. Is your heart up? Notice how you feel in your body when you say no. What stories come up in your mind? How does the other person respond? And how do you feel afterwards? Hopefully, you'll feel empowered. But remember this, their disappointment is not your emergency, it's none of your business. People will always tell you that, oh, act like there's a big crisis. Their crisis has nothing to do with you. Don't expect me to rush around and address things that come up for you because you were a poor planner. That's not mine. It's not mine. It's not my problem. And you don't have to make it your responsibility. Okay. Now that's a lot to chew on. Um, I want you to think about some of these things. Um, if you are interested, I want you to shoot me an email at dabutts, B-U-T-T-S, at ajoydivine.org. Shoot me an email and just say, I want to learn to set boundaries. I want to learn to set boundaries. And I will send you a free digital copy of a boundary checklist that I developed. It's 12 pages. It is I have it here. It's you probably can see. This is just a prototype, but it is a checklist with all kinds, like 10 areas: emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, time boundaries, relational boundaries, professional boundaries, digital boundaries, but you didn't think about that. Financial boundaries, spiritual boundaries, cultural and racial boundaries, mental health and emotional health boundaries, and identity boundaries. Now, that's pretty comprehensive. Also included are some affirmations that you can use, as well as questions that you can reflect on. But the reason why I'm offering this to you, because it is a tool that you can use. And I'm going to tell you, there are some areas that as I was researching for this, there were some areas that I was like, wow, I really need to start practicing this. And not only practicing it, but also maybe journaling it. Um, because the more we allow ourselves to be in control of our own lives, our own time, our energy, our capacity, when you do that, that's more freedom for you. It's more freedom for you. And so, who doesn't want to be free? I know I do. Because, honey, folks trying to do enough to decide our fates for us. It's okay for you to make that decision about your life and how you want to live, honey. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So, shoot me that email. Again, it's dabutts, BUTTS, at ajoydivine.org. And just say you want to learn how to set boundaries. Send me your email. Well, I'll have your email address. But if you also want to send me your cell number, then there are some things that may come up, and I will send out, group text, not a group text where all these people are responding and your phone is tinging, but I have a service that will send out texts um, when there's something coming up. There may be a tool that I created or some kind of product that I have that you may be interested in. Okay, so do that. That's my gift to you, because Valentine's Day is coming up, and I want you to love you as hard as you be loving everybody else. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So as we are ending our time together, and we're not finished just yet, I want you to think about a few things. Somewhere along the line, we learned that being good meant being available. I want you to wrestle with those thoughts. I want you to really think about where that came from and learn how to reframe it. You don't have to be available to be good. Say yes for the things that you want to do that are going to bring you joy. Understand that being loved means having that being loving doesn't mean not having limits. Okay, because we learn that as well. It's not just being good is available. But if you are a loving person, you're not going to say no. No is not a bad word. No is self preservation. Um, and I want you to understand that some of the things that we've internalized is not the gospel. The gospel is that Jesus came so that we could have life and have it more abundantly. An abundant life requires boundaries, it requires rest, it requires the holy no. Okay? Your no is not selfish, it's sacred. It really is. It means that you're saving yourself for the things that matter. You're waiting to hear from God before you make the next step. You're waiting to hear what God has for you. You're not just saying yes to everyone and everybody, especially when there are people that we hold dear in authority, like the pastor, like your parents, like your sibling and family members or elders, or someone in the community that you just can't say no to. Explore that. Explore why that is you can't say no to that person. And really search yourself and see what that is. Is it because of these messages that you've heard all your life? And if that's it, try to reframe that so that it works for you, so that you're not harming yourself. Because that's exactly what it is, self inflicted harm, when we're saying yes to everything. And when you do say no to what's not yours, create you create a space for what is yours. Okay, so that means you will have the capacity to handle what you could handle. It means you will find the time to be with loved ones and to laugh and to enjoy a good meal, to have that phone call with a friend you haven't talked to in too long. You'll have the time to do the things that you want to do and still do the things you're called to do. So I want you to be intentional about setting space for you to eat. I want you to, hold on, I'm trying to check something here. Space for you to say yes to some things like rest. I want you to be able to say yes to your purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, that's going to be later on. To your health, to your family. And all of that is waiting for you on the other side of that holy no. So don't be afraid to use that this week, okay? Um, One of the things that as we work from week to week to week, well, y'all live in these mountains too, so sometimes the internet is going to play some games. So hopefully you've been able to hear me, and you've been able to hear me even if the screen freezes, because I'm still going. I don't really know what's going on the other side, or with the cable. So let's give each other some grace on that point. I also want you to know that there are other shows on the PA Empowerment Network. And I invite you to come and listen to some of the conversations around politics, mental health, and other issues of today and of today's time. So please just go to YouTube, put in PA Empowerment Network, and you will be able to find the shows and the times that they are listed. So, just keep your mind open to the things that are going on this week. Listen for those opportunities where you need to use your holy no, where you need to say, no, I'm not doing this. when you say yes to you. Okay. And as I said, Valentine's Day is coming up, and we always look from love from everywhere else. We have things we want our spouse to do for us, things we want the kids to do for us, things we want everybody, or things we're going to do for other people. But what are you going to do for you? That's my question. What are you going to do for you? And I say using that holy no as a way for you to do that, to find some time to take care of you, to respect your body, to respect your health, and to respect your capacity and your ability to carry things. Okay, so hey, none of us are Jesus. I'm going to ask you to take some time, think about what it is you need. If you know, send me an email if there's some other subjects that you're interested in that you would like for me to speak on. I usually talk about restless resistance and Sabbath because I know how hard it is for Black women especially to take the time and serve themselves while you serving everybody else. We just somehow think that we're not supposed to do that, but you can and you must, sister. You must, in order for you to be your best self, to give to everyone else. Don't keep running to the church every time the door is open and you go home yelling at your kids because you're tired. That's not a good look, and that's not a good witness. I'm not always going to put everything in a theological frame or talk about the scripture when I talk. Um, because I know that's not everybody's life, but I also know it is a part of life. And sometimes the church is an area where we have difficulty. So I want to bring it, I'm going to talk about it because I understand that. And for those of you who have had church hurt, I understand that too. But don't let your church hurt get in the way of your relationship with whatever higher power that you believe in, because it is about your relationship with God, or with whomever you call God, and whatever name you use for God, the universe, the spirit, the creator. That's the relationship you seek. And so I'm going to wrap this up right now. I'm going to ask y'all to remember you're deserving, you're worthy, you are a daughter of divine joy. Okay. And so I want you to take this as permission to say no, to be healthy, to be whole, and to be well. Be blessed, y'all. Take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And we've all heard that expression, but I want you to really, really live into it. Make sure you save some of you for you. Amen. Amen. Good night, y'all. Send me an email. Bye bye.